Tell me what it's been like to do this rebrand for Zendesk.
I spoke to the chief creative officer at, and we wanted to kind of run it by him because he just went through a massive rebrand, and all he said is just, don't do it. Just don't do it.
Back in 2008, Pepsi rolled out a brand new logo that absolutely no one liked. Not just because it was a soulless corporate design that went against everything that Pepsi stood for in the decade prior, but because this logo cost $1 million. There was also the breakthrough design document, filled with absolute gibberish and graphic design over-explanation that baffled everyone. So why did this new rebrand cost $1 million? We don't see the amount of time that goes into a single rebrand. A rebrand of this size can involve market research, surveys, generating ideas, developing different design routes, the dozens upon dozens of ideas that hit the cutting room floor before we get to the final outcome over the course of many months. Another explanation for the $1 million price tag is the fact that this was created by Arnell Group, an agency founded by Peter Arnell, a designer and strategist with decades of experience in the field. When choosing a designer or agency, the more experience they have, the more expensive a project will be. So does this justify the costs? No. A pricey agency doesn't guarantee good design. For example, this is the same agency that got paid $35 million to butcher Tropicana's identity and packaging, which led to losses for Tropicana of $30 million in just the first year. So they dropped the new packaging, reverting back to the previous designs, and something tells me they didn't get their money back. It's worth pointing out that Peter Arnell has been compared to Harvey Weinstein, and those aren't my words, with allegations that he abused and degraded several women with allegations going back to the mid-1990s. That's according to this article in Newsweek called The Crazy Genius of Brand Guru Peter Arnell. Yeah, genius. Branding is expensive work. There are many reasons for a new logo to cost a sizable chunk of change, but keep in mind when you see these figures reported, they are likely to grab your attention and don't tell the whole story. You can't talk about expensive logos without mentioning the London 2012 Olympics logo. Designed by Wolf Ollins and widely reported to have cost as much as £400,000, the announcement of this logo did not go to plan. The agency knew there would be a backlash, but they couldn't prepare themselves for the shitstorm that was the British press. The design itself was meme to hell and back, while the initial announcement video caused 18 epileptic seizures. It didn't help that Wolf Ollins chose the worst possible colour combination of hot pink and bright yellow. It's a logo that made the front page. People voted in polls giving the logo the lowest marks possible, thousands signed a petition, MPs weighed in calling for it to be scrapped, and newspapers ran competitions asking for submissions from the public, and unsurprisingly got a bunch of garbage. This is what you get when your logo design costs nothing. That figure of £400,000 was what really grabbed the headlines, but this was taken completely out of context. Once again, the process of creating the logo took 8 months of work, made by an agency that wasn't going to be cheap. Also, if your client is massive, the cost of the project is going to be massive as well. This is a logo that would appear on TV screens across the globe and be seen by millions, if not billions of people. While Wolf Ollins made the initial logo, they didn't do the overall brand and implementation. This was handled by McCann Group, working alongside several designers, architects, advertisers and sponsors, with Future Brand developing the overall look and feel. For me, this is the aspect that really saved the project in many ways. It felt unique, it was full of energy, and avoided the typical London landmark cliches. Looking at the logo today, I believe most people do agree that this was the right choice. This was likely aided by being exposed to the logo for so many years. The design is a bit messy and some of the numbers even look illegible, like the number 2 collapsing under the 0. £400,000 is a lot of money for just the logo, but if you put it into context, the cost of the London Olympics was £8.77 billion, so this logo was 0.0046% of the overall budget. It was undoubtedly an upgrade from the London 2012 bid logo, which nowadays looks so dated and cliched. What I find especially funny now is the BBC reporting on the London 2012 Olympics logo for its cost, as they themselves would experience the same controversy. As the BBC rebranded in 2022 with an update and a logo that was barely noticeable if you weren't paying attention, a rebrand that cost slightly more than £400,000 because this cost over £7 million. The rebrand featured minor updates to the BBC logo and redesigned logos for a number of their services, bringing a consistency to an otherwise inconsistent set of logo designs. Even the BBC Three logo was brought in line with the new logo system. Prior to this, the BBC had absolutely no idea what it was doing with this channel's logo. Headlines, of course, ran with a figure of £7.26 million, and yes, that's a ton of TV license money to spend on a rebrand, but the full brand package goes far beyond just a handful of logos. There are the aforementioned icons for BBC services, new idents for TV and online, refreshing the website and apps, and all the other brand collateral for social media and web content. This is another rebrand that was singled out for barely changing its logo, but the full rebrand is what's important.
They're the same picture.
The Gov UK rebrand is another project that had the same treatment by the likes of the Daily Mail.
I am shocked. Shocked! Well, not that shocked.
Instead of doing any research to inform the public of what goes into these projects, they simply post rage bait articles, because clickbait and shoddy journalism is far more important than educating the general public.
I suppose, what is the difference?
Well, since you asked, the difference in the logo is the font. Using their own unique font for their logo will save money in the long run, as the previous logo used the font Gill Sans. The BBC had been paying license fees to use this font since 1997.
So there'll be some big communications agency have been commissioned to do this.
Yeah.
Whereas what they could have done is just put it out to the general public to do, and you would have got something much better than that.
No, they wouldn't. I've read a comparison that these rebrands are like taking your black car to a garage and getting the engine, gearbox, brake discs and suspension replaced while also respraying the car blue. But when it rolls out of the garage, the only immediately obvious change is the new colour. Now, we could try and guess the hourly rate and the number of man-hours needed to produce such a rebrand, but instead, let's take a look at who worked on this rebrand. The new identity was created in-house and with Wolf Ollins. Take one look through their client list, and the majority are national or globally recognised brands. They can charge a lot because their clients can afford it. The figure of £7 million wasn't just for a few months of work, but spread out over several years. And looking at the bigger picture, BBC's revenue for the 22-23 financial year was £5.7 billion, so the cost of this rebrand is around 0.13% of their revenue. As for BBC's new logos, they were a mixed bag. Each of the new icons aimed to use the 3 blocks from the BBC logo to create an icon, so some do look vaguely like a recognisable icon, while others definitely don't look like anything. How does this mean sport or news? The BBC's brand was seen as being old-fashioned and inconsistent. This rebrand overall does have some good elements, but nothing from this rebrand really blew anyone's socks off. Looking through any article talking about the most expensive logos ever, most of these cost from the low price of just a few $100,000 up to truly eye-watering sums. Like the London 2012 logo, the size of the project and the company is far more important. For example, the Nike logo cost just $35. If the $100 billion profit company was going to make a logo today, it would likely cost millions. But when the swoosh was first designed in 1971 by student Carolyn Davidson, at the time they were known as Blue Ribbon Sports, a shoe supplier with a handful of stores on the East Coast. They distributed Japanese-made running shoes, so the company wasn't even called Nike yet. This was years before they would become a household name and globally recognised brand. Another example would be EE. Launched when Orange and T-Mobile merged to become one single telecommunications provider, the estimated cost of $250 million wasn't just for a new name and logo. Instead, the figure was for the extensive amount of advertising to let people know the mobile provider would now look completely different, as well as rebranding all their retail outlets, packaging, print collateral, new TV campaigns, and hiring Kevin Bacon.
Hey, I'm Kevin Bacon.
I've already mentioned the logistics of a rebrand being a huge undertaking for logos used across the globe, and that's exactly why BP's latest logo apparently cost $211 million. This new brand would be seen across their 25,000 service stations in 70 countries where they employ 100,000 people. A new logo which aimed to remove the name British Petroleum, so BP now meant absolutely nothing, and the logo represented the company's shift to becoming more environmentally friendly. That causes oil spills, resulting in the death of 11 workers and creating the largest marine oil spill in history.
We're sorry. I'm deeply sorry. Sorry.
Most of these articles running through expensive logos are just pure clickbait, and even acknowledge that most of the pics are the quote for the full project, not just a single logo. The Symantec logo will likely top the list of these dumb articles and videos, as Symantec did not pay $1.25 billion for the logo alone. Instead, this figure was used to acquire a company called redesign and their checkmark logo for themselves, as they saw the design as being valuable and recognisable. This article even acknowledges that it's dishonest to say this logo cost $1.25 billion, so why did you put it as number 1 in your article then? Other expensive logos that were actually rebrands, advertising campaigns, and the rollout of a new refresh include Accenture, AOL, Post & Nord, ANZ Bank, and MasterCard. There are some legitimate cases for expensive logos. Paul Rand created logos for Enron before they went bankrupt, and Next Computers.
I get it!
Steve Jobs' next company after being sacked by Apple.
Oh, now I get it!
Back in the 90s, Paul Rand was a respected logo designer who had previously designed logos for IBM, ABC, and UPS. So you're not paying for an hourly wage here. You're paying for an experienced logo designer who was one of the biggest names in logo design at the time. Austin's new city logo is the latest in a long line of logos to be the subject of the internet's rage when a new identity was announced in September 2025. Many of the criticisms say the same thing. Either this looks like a toothpaste logo, can't really argue with that, and this logo is not worth $1.1 million. I'm not going to tell anybody that this was absolutely worth that much money, because it isn't, but more importantly, it didn't cost this much in the first place. This figure is once again rage bait, used in article headlines and social media posts to grab people's attention, because big numbers are easy to latch onto, but now everyone thinks that this logo cost over $1 million. The real cost of the logo is obviously much less, as the agency Pentagram was paid a fee split between themselves and TKO Advertising for $200,000. This fee was taken from the $1.1 million, which is meant to cover years' worth of work, including the research, strategy, and the brand's implementation. The city's Instagram account did clarify the cost of the logo, being less than 1% of their budget of $1.4 billion. The cost of the full project seems to include the brand rollout too, as implementing a brand across a city is a task unto itself. But they also state that maintaining one brand is going to be more cost effective than trying to maintain all the brands they had before. Some brands will take years to implement their latest rebrand, such as Burger King. They rebranded in 2021 and I still see their old logo popping up in places, and car brands like Citroën rebranded in 2022 and some of their dealerships still use the old logos on their signage. As for Austin's logo, this isn't a tourism logo, and the seal it replaced is not going anywhere. It isn't meant to say keep Austin weird or represent the live music capital of the world. Instead, it falls in line with other minimal government logos like that of Chicago and Boston. These rebrands aren't meant to be flashy, but are designed to establish a system that all government departments can follow, the city of Chicago being a prime example. They're aiming for consistency and clarity, as the city of Austin had over 300 logos with very different designs and approaches. City logos tend to be an expensive endeavour, as they may include extensive market research, consulting government officials and the public. The system that is created then needs to be flexible and implemented across the entire city. This could be seen with the city of Belfast and their $280,000 rebrand, as well as Melbourne. They set something of a trend for redesigning city logos and creating flexible identity systems back in 2009, which is why their rebrand set them back $625,000.